He got his suit back just in time. And no matter what happens in his life, he gets absolutely no respect.
Under those blinding Tonight Show lights, Johnny Carson stood as the unbeatable king of late-night TV, the man everybody wanted to sit across from. The stage sparkled like a Hollywood magnet, pulling in the biggest stars of the era. But behind that polished laughter, the backstage energy was a whole different world.
I suddenly became Carson's rival, which was stupid. I was going on Fox. Fox had 5 stations in those days.
Full of tension, ego battles, and quiet grudges simmering in the shadows. So who was the one person who managed to shake this king to his core? Was it a bold guest who crossed a line? A superstar who tried to steal his spotlight? Or a scandal so loud it rattled the entire TV industry and left executives scrambling behind closed doors? These untold secrets and backstage clashes paint a dark, unexpected picture of Carson.
Carson absolutely tried to kill me. Really, not physically.
One the public rarely saw, but insiders never forgot. Joan Rivers stepped onto The Tonight Show for the first time in 1965, hitting the stage with razor-sharp wit, fearless jokes, and a fast-talking style that had audiences laughing from the jump. Her energy felt fresh, and viewers instantly connected with her, making her a frequent guest through the 60s and 70s. By the 1980s, she was more than just another comic, she was climbing. And when Johnny Carson personally chose her as his official substitute host, it cemented her place as one of his closest colleagues in the entire business. Being trusted to run the show in his absence wasn't just an honor. It was rare air in a cutthroat TV world where loyalty meant everything. Rivers didn't just show up and crack jokes. She helped shape the show's vibe, turning The Tonight Show into a launchpad for new talent. She had already become one of the first major female comedians to break through in a male-dominated field, crushing club stages in New York and turning her TV appearances into signature moments. Her boldness took her far beyond comedy. She wrote books, acted, directed, and built a reputation as a fearless, unstoppable creative force. On Carson's stage, she wasn't just another guest. She was a staple, someone who could turn any interview into a moment viewers remembered, which is exactly why what happened next felt so shocking to everyone around them. Everything flipped in 1986 when Rivers accepted the hosting job for The Late Show starring Joan Rivers on Fox, a direct competitor airing at the exact same time as The Tonight Show. And the part that cut the deepest? She didn't call Carson to tell him first, leaving him blindsided in a move that felt like a personal betrayal to someone who once championed her. For Carson, who had backed Rivers from day one, her jump to a rival network felt like a deep cut he couldn't ignore. In her conversation with Oprah Winfrey, Rivers said, "I had called him, but he never returned my call. I think he felt betrayed." That silence spoke louder than any argument. Carson, usually private and never quick to blast anyone publicly, made his feelings crystal clear. He shut the door completely. No more calls, no more invitations, no more partnership. A friendship that once looked unbreakable fell apart overnight, and Carson's cold silence turned into the loudest message of all. The fallout blew up instantly across American television. Newspapers, talk shows, and entertainment columns ran with the story, painting Rivers as the star who turned her back on the man who helped launch her into the spotlight. And as the headlines got louder, her big new project started slipping fast. The Late Show starring Joan Rivers was supposed to change TV history, but the pressure crushed it. The show collapsed after just 1 year, unable to go toe-to-toe with The Tonight Show's loyal audience. The failure left Rivers dealing with financial stress and drifting further away from colleagues who didn't understand her choices. Meanwhile, Carson sat steady on his throne, continuing his run as the undefeated king of late night. His show stayed strong, his audience stayed loyal, and his legacy only tightened while Rivers tried to recover from the fallout. Rivers made more than one attempt to mend things, but Carson stayed icy, leaving a permanent crack that never healed. This wasn't just a story about a friendship gone wrong. It showed how unforgiving the entertainment world can be when ambition collides with loyalty. But Rivers wasn't the only star who left Carson disappointed, because another legend ended up testing his patience in a whole different way. Enter Frank Sinatra, the powerhouse singer and film icon whose presence alone could electrify The Tonight Show. Every time Sinatra appeared, the night turned into an event, and the audience hung on every note and every word he delivered. But behind the glamour came demands, heavy ones. Sinatra had a strong personality and liked to control every moment of his public image. From the pacing of the conversation to the exact wording of his introduction, he wanted things done his way, and that didn't sit smoothly with Carson, who guarded his stage like a general. During one taping in the 1970s, Sinatra even cut Carson off mid-interview, steering the conversation wherever he wanted. Production members said he pushed for script changes, and he warned Carson not to bring up certain personal topics. That level of control boxed Carson in, making even his quick wit feel trapped. The studio energy shifted fast. Sinatra stretched out stories and accidentally overshadowed the host, leaving the set feeling tense. One insider put it plainly: Frank wanted everything his way, but Johnny was not someone who gave in easily. And that was the truth. Carson always respected his guests, but he refused to let anyone run his stage. Carson reportedly started limiting Sinatra's appearances on The Tonight Show. Even though he never admitted any tension publicly, Sinatra stayed a giant in music and film, untouchable, respected, unstoppable. But his visits to Carson's stage quietly grew fewer. Both men kept things professional, never letting the situation explode the way it did with Joan Rivers. Yet anyone watching closely could sense the strain every time they shared the spotlight. This silent clash showed what happens when two powerhouse personalities collide. Sinatra represented an entire era of stars determined to control their image down to the smallest detail, while Carson fought just as hard to keep the creative flow of The Tonight Show in his own hands. Sinatra's segments remained unforgettable for viewers, but behind the scenes, folks whispered about just how challenging it was to manage someone with that level of dominance. Moments like these only highlighted Carson's skill at keeping the show running smoothly, no matter who sat in the guest chair. Then came Gore Vidal, bringing a whole new kind of tension to the stage in the 1970s. Vidal, the acclaimed writer and political firebrand, stepped onto The Tonight Show with his sharp wit and bold opinions, ready to debate anyone and anything. Known for books like Myra Breckinridge and Burr, he became a familiar TV figure who refused to soften his stance for anyone, not even Johnny Carson. His direct debating style often turned simple interviews into full-on intellectual battles. Instead of jokes and easy laughs, the room would shift into heavy discussions about politics, society, and the people in power. All the stuff Carson tried to keep off the show to avoid alienating viewers. During one unforgettable appearance, Vidal launched into a fierce critique of government and high-ranking figures. Carson tried, with all his usual smoothness, to steer things back to lighter ground, but Vidal wasn't budging. He kept pushing deeper into serious territory, completely overshadowing the fun energy the show was built on. A production team source once told the New York Times, Johnny respected Vidal, but he didn't want the show turning into a political forum. That tension sat heavy behind the scenes. The Tonight Show was meant for everyone, not a stage for intense academic battles. After that, Carson quietly pulled back on inviting Vidal too often, worried that the confrontational tone might disrupt the balance he worked hard to maintain. This clash never became a messy scandal, but it showed just how different the two men were. Vidal stayed loyal to his style, appearing on other shows where he could debate freely. Carson doubled down on his belief that late night should entertain, not divide. Their tense exchanges didn't harm either man's legacy, but they revealed how tough it was for Carson to manage guests with strong personalities and totally different goals. Vidal's intellectual showdowns left their own mark, and soon another iconic figure would make Carson just as cautious. Bob Hope was next, the comedy titan whose presence could take over any room. Hope, the legendary entertainer known for decades of films, stand-up, and special performances for American troops, became one of the most frequent and beloved guests on The Tonight Show. He brought razor-sharp timing, endless charm, and stories from a life packed with fame and travel, making every appearance feel like an event. Behind Bob Hope's friendly smile was a habit that drove Carson a little crazy. He loved taking over the stage. Hope often stretched his segments with polished monologues and long stories that felt more like personal showcases than interviews, and it didn't always sit well with Johnny Carson, who worked hard to keep his show tight and balanced. With decades of experience behind him, Hope could turn any moment into story time, sometimes overshadowing Carson without even noticing. In the 1970s, it became common for Hope to ignore Carson's wrap-up signals and roll right into another lengthy satirical tale that threw off the show's timing. One production member told Variety, Bob liked to dominate the airtime, but Johnny didn't want the show to revolve only around the guest. Carson, praised for keeping the rhythm smooth and the energy sharp, felt boxed in by Hope's stage-stealing habits. They never fought publicly, but those small frustrations grew loud enough behind the scenes that Carson reportedly reduced Hope's appearances in later years, choosing guests who made the flow easier to control. The tension never blew up into scandal, but it exposed an unspoken rivalry between two comedy giants. Hope, a long-established star, was used to running the show on his own terms, while Carson guarded The Tonight Show like sacred ground. Hope's career stayed golden and beloved, but his presence on the program slowly faded as their working styles drifted apart. These behind-the-scenes frictions showed that Carson wasn't just a talented host, he was fiercely protective of his creative vision. And that dedication became a major part of the legacy that still defines late-night TV today. The rise of The Tonight Show began long before Carson stepped in. When it premiered on NBC on September 27, 1954, it marked a major turning point in American television. Under its first host, Steve Allen, the show blended comedy, interviews, and music in a way that gave viewers something fresh to unwind with after a long day. Allen's clever, inventive style laid the groundwork for what would eventually evolve into the modern talk show format. In those early years, The Tonight Show was still searching for its true identity, but things shifted when Jack Paar took over in 1957. Paar brought depth and emotion to interviews, sometimes stirring controversy, yet this honesty pulled in viewers who wanted more than surface-level entertainment. His sincerity made the show feel bigger, more personal, and more unpredictable. Then in 1962, Johnny Carson arrived, and everything changed. A comedian from Nebraska with radio and TV experience, Carson had a natural charm, a quick mind, and an instinct for reading people that set him apart. He didn't just guide conversations, he created a relaxed, intimate vibe that made guests open up and made viewers feel like they were part of something special. Carson turned hosting into an art form. He balanced humor with ease, improvisation with structure, and personality with professionalism, raising The Tonight Show to a new cultural level. As an NBC source told The Hollywood Reporter, Johnny didn't just host the show, he made it part of America's everyday lives. He refined the show's format into what people now see as classic late night, from topical monologues to iconic comedy sketches like Karnak the Magnificent. In 1972, Carson made a bold move, literally. He shifted The Tonight Show from New York to Burbank, California, planting it right in Hollywood's backyard and pulling in even bigger stars night after night. This decision helped transform the show into more than entertainment. It became a nightly ritual for millions, blending laughs, heart, and moments of real depth that only Carson could deliver. Those early years laid the foundation for a legacy that would stretch across generations. The Tonight Show wasn't just a program anymore. It was a cultural force, shaping late-night TV in ways nobody saw coming. Then, on May 22, 1992, everything changed. After 3 decades as the king of late night, Johnny Carson suddenly announced his retirement, leaving both viewers and the television world stunned. At 66, he was still at the top of his game, pulling in massive audiences, so the news felt like a shockwave across the country. His final episode was simple but powerful. No flashy farewell, no dramatic send-off, just Carson being Carson. According to an NBC insider quoted by the Los Angeles Times, Johnny didn't want to prolong the attention. He just wanted to leave quietly and let the show go on. That quiet exit spoke volumes. Carson's departure closed an era and left a deep emptiness for fans who had welcomed his voice into their homes every night. Once he stepped away, he disappeared from the spotlight almost completely, choosing a private life in Malibu, California, where he spent his days playing tennis, traveling, writing, and enjoying peace away from the cameras. Unlike many stars who chased the spotlight after retirement, Carson turned down almost every invitation to return to TV. The few exceptions included a voice cameo on The Simpsons in 1993 and sending funny letters to David Letterman. Mostly, he poured his time into his personal life with his fourth wife, Alexis Moss, savoring the freedom he never had before. He still kept up with The Tonight Show from a distance, and close friends said he wasn't happy about the heated battle for his old chair between Jay Leno and David Letterman, even though he refused to comment publicly. Carson stayed classy, even when the industry around him got messy. His life after the show wasn't without pain. He dealt with serious health struggles, including chronic obstructive pulmonary disease from years of smoking. And the loss of his son Rick in a car accident in 1991 brought him heartbreak he rarely spoke about. Still, Carson stayed hopeful, writing short pieces, keeping in touch with a tight circle of friends, and living quietly on his own terms. When he passed away on January 23, 2005, at 79 from respiratory failure, the world felt the loss instantly. Fans, colleagues, and generations of viewers mourned the legend who shaped late-night television like no one else. Carson may have stepped off the stage, but The Tonight Show carried his influence forever, proving that his legacy didn't fade. It became timeless. Johnny Carson left behind a legacy that refuses to fade, a journey that stretched across generations and rewrote the entire playbook of late-night TV. When he took over The Tonight Show in 1962, he didn't just host it, he reinvented it, turning the program into a cultural force that ruled late night for 30 straight years. His sharp monologues flipped the news of the day into comedy, while still making viewers feel like they were sitting in the room with him. Carson's interviewing skills became legendary. He could make giants like Frank Sinatra relax on camera, yet handle tough, headstrong guests like Gore Vidal with finesse that kept the audience glued to their screens. The show became a launchpad for rising stars. Comedians, singers, entertainers, anyone who stepped onto that stage walked away changed. With 6 Emmy Awards and a Peabody to his name, Carson didn't just run a talk show, he built a gold standard that others still follow. And the magic wasn't just in the jokes. The Tonight Show reflected the heart of America, shifting with the country as it moved through the 1960s and 1970s. Serious issues like the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement found their way into the conversations, yet the mood stayed light, human, and inviting. Carson welcomed everyone. Politicians like Robert Kennedy, Hollywood icons like Elizabeth Taylor, legends, newcomers, and even unknown comedians who would one day become giants. David Letterman, Jerry Seinfeld, and so many more got their early shine thanks to that stage. The format Carson perfected, monologues, intimate interviews, musical guests, still powers modern late night. His successors, from Jay Leno to Conan O'Brien, pulled inspiration straight from his playbook, and the cultural moments he created became history, like the Beatles' explosive 1964 appearance or interviews with figures who stirred intense debate, including Muhammad Ali. Today, under Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show lives on in a brand new era. Fallon brings high-energy sketches, viral challenges, and clips built for social media, all while battling competition from streaming giants and independent online creators. But even with the pressure, the show survives because the foundation Carson built is still strong. As one NBC source told Variety, Fallon keeps the soul of The Tonight Show by refreshing it for the digital generation. The clashes Carson once faced with powerful guests, the backstage tension, the iconic interviews, and the quiet moments of drama, all of it shaped a legacy bigger than the man himself. Johnny Carson and The Tonight Show weren't just television. They were a cultural journey that connected millions, sparked debates, and sometimes divided the room with shocking moments or bold decisions. So, what do you think? Was Carson too harsh when he cut off people like Joan Rivers, or was he simply defending his kingdom in a world built on loyalty and respect? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This debate is far from over. And if you love this deep dive into old-school Hollywood drama, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to RumorFame so you never miss the next wild, drama-packed story.